just me? So I can escape here. And then we'll go.
Are we ready?
I'm ready when you are.
I'm never ready.
You're never ready? Okay, so yours is right here. Let me go ahead and find it. Make sure. Stick this here. All right. Let's see it on here. Okay. Yeah, but when I ejected, it shows up. That's weird.
I think you got my presentation, did you? I'm not sure I can do it.
Let's
So
try
you get
this.
rid of
Close
Chrome.
the finder. Let's find it. Okay, so so can you email it to me?
Yeah,
That might be easier. Yeah, because the only time I see it is when you pull it out. So here's this. So we go here. We got iCloud, tags, view, icons.
It's called just maybe at the desktop you will find.
Maybe,
No.
No. I will say that this one is decrepit. Let's try this. Let's close this. Go here.
Okay.
Yeah, because it shows up when you pull it out. All
So
right, so let's try this. It's in the show.
Oh, I'm gonna try this one. I think this might work.
You think it might work?
Yeah,
Okay.
here you go.
What is it that you
I'm gonna
think might
call it.
work? No, it's just, yeah, if you email it, or can you airdrop it?
I could try.
Do you have an airdrop on your MacBook?
Yes, I should.
Yeah, that might be the easiest way to do
Where
it.
do I find my airdrop?
So if you just go search and type in airdrop, it's probably the fastest way.
Not now.
Okay, I just send it to your Gmail account.
Okay, perfect. People probably are listening to us go through our process and they want us to start because they've been waiting for this all day because, you know, they've been waiting for it for months, the anticipation.
Yep.
I don't see Ronaldo on the line.
Let's see. He said he was in the waiting room.
No, he was on, but now I don't see him.
He's off.
I can't talk now. Bye.
Maybe that'll work. Let's see. Let me try my other Gmail account. Okay. Let's see whose presentation
I
it is.
cannot talk now. Bye.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
check it out.
I can check it out. All right, so we got that one. All right, so I have Ronaldo's presentation.
Yep, we're gonna get ready. We gotta go.
Yeah, so can you log into the internet and just go to Zoom and then you can share your screen? Well, you won't have to airdrop it. If you go through Zoom, you can just share your screen when it's time for you to do your presentation.
Okay, so I'm in Zoom.
Yeah, so
Yes.
when it's your turn, so just have your presentation ready.
Okay.
All right,
I'm
so,
ready.
all right, so go ahead. So we don't know what order we're going in, so I guess you're just gonna throw the ball at it. You're gonna start with Alexa?
Yeah. Well, okay. The answer is yes,
I
we
can't
can.
share my screen because the
Um,
host disconnected that.
Okay, we're gonna
just-
give 2
I
minutes
just
to Alexa.
pressed
We are 12 minutes in, guys. You ready?
So when I'm
Am I a co-host?
You are co-host.
I'm looking, I don't see the ability to make her a co-host.
Who,
So can you make all of us, yeah, and make,
She doesn't have a camera on her computer. We can't see her face.
She's on here.
All right. Okay, you guys ready? We gotta go.
Alexa,
Mhm.
are you in the Zoom?
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know I need to be with them.
We gotta go, guys.
Yeah,
Ready?
let's go.
5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome and thank you to our side event for our historic forum here in Geneva, Switzerland. Our side event, Afrofuturism After Globalization, Africa Diaspora Futures. Today, we are joined with our esteemed panelists, Dr. Ronaldo Anderson, Zyka Dos Santos, Dr. Lawana Richmond, Yvonne Apio Brandle Amolo from Switzerland, Dr. Natasha Kelly from Germany, myself, Ewell Anderson, and we'll also hear a few words from PhD candidate Alexa White. This is Afrofuturism 2.0. We'll start our panel, and then we'll begin with Dr. Ronaldo Anderson, and then we'll end with future research methods, and hopefully we'll have time for some question and answers. So I'd like to start with Dr. Anderson, and then after Dr. Anderson, we'll yield some time for our PhD candidate, Alexa White. And then from there, we'll go to Zyka. And then from Zyka, we'll go to Natasha Kelly. And then we'll go to parliamentarian Ms. Apio, and then to Dr. Richmond. And hopefully, if we have time, we'll end with myself and question and answers. So to start us off, can we have Dr. Ronaldo Anderson?
Yeah, you're up. I don't see you in the Zoom.
Okay, for time, because we have to move, why don't we
Okay, I'm
hear
gonna
from
send you another link, okay?
Zyka?
Because everybody else is in it. I'm not sure what's happening with you.
Zyka, are you on?
All right. Okay.
Does anyone see Zyka on?
No.
Okay, if Zyka is not on, how about Miss Kelly, Natasha Kelly, are you on? They may have the wrong links.
Mhm. Yeah, so I'm
From
gonna send-
there, let's go to our parliamentarian, Mr. Pio. If you could begin with your presentation, and we'll try to correct the technical difficulties with our other panelists. So, Mr. Pio.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Happy to be here. Happy for the invitation to share my work on Afrofuturism and Afrofuturist feminists. That's what I'm going to talk about today. This presentation was done and presented already at the Freiburg University in Germany, and so let's go right into it. What is Afrofuturist feminism? Afrofuturist feminism is tied into Black cyber feminists. It's a feminist perspective rooted in gender, ethnicity, the understanding of. Can you see my presentation? No. Okay.
Are you sure? You share the screen?
Yeah.
Are you in the Zoom?
Yes, I am in the Zoom. Okay, I will try that again. I seem to have gone out of
So
the Zoom.
no, click right there. That's the Zoom.
Okay.
So click that. Now click
Yes.
share. German.
That's okay. Well, I'll find it. Okay,
Yeah, got it.
I'll keep talking as I do this. So it's rooted in the understanding of the African diaspora continuum and it embraces the connection between cyberspace, the internet, and technology to further the African diaspora continuism. It offers an oppositional gaze of new technologies and their intertwined relationships with power and social justice. The objectives of Afrofuturist feminism is to raise awareness, cause mobilization, or encourage action. It also has social change, where Black women are agents of social change in engaging in dialogue across the border on Black feminism with digital platforms. It creates institutional spaces among white dominant patriarchal realms for Afrofuturist feminists to flourish, It also has entrepreneurship and adds alternative solutions. For example, meets the challenges of today by building the legacies of Afrofuturist feminism to incorporate new tools to flourish, like hashtags that connect us across the globe. I will try that again.
Well,
One,
okay.
so you go to share screen and say, but multiple people can share. Yeah, click multiple people can share.
Yeah.
Because I have a video I would like to show. There we go.
I can't do that.
Okay.
All right. I did it.
So okay, let's go on for a minute.
All right. Ronaldo's in now as well.
Okay, so of Afrofuturism, feminism, its digital activism is well known. It uses social media hashtags, activism like Black Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, tweets, Snapchat, blogs on YouTube, and so on. It uses films, musical videos, web series, video games like Hair Nair, and digital art. Examples of Afrofuturism feminism: social media activism, for example, the music like Beyonce's Flawless, which actually made feminism very popular in Africa, because before that, most African women did not want to identify as feminists. So she used Chimamanda Adichie in 2001 as saying, and she also used that in her song, Flawless. Lizzo also promoted feminism by using body positivity. In hashtag activism, we use hashtags like, for example, Bring Back Our Child, which was also very popular in Africa, Our Girls, which helped to find the young girls who disappeared in Nigeria, the Me Too hashtag, and Fast Tail Girls, and so on. Afrofuturism feminism also uses crowdfunding. One example is End SARS Now, which was also in Nigeria, where they managed to mobilize the population to work against ending SARS, justice for women, and so on. One other example of social media activism is the climate activists like Vanessa Nakate from Uganda, who also used a lot of social media to generate some population and some motivation around climate activism. We use activism also in art, like Hamona Rosales, who shows us the creation of God, where she does a whole new picture to depict what she reimagines the Michelangelo's creation of Adam. The original painting can be seen in the Sistine Chapel located in the Vatican. Her current painting, okay, sorry, I can't put that up. So she uses that. And then we have the Hair Now game, by Momo Pixel, which was created during the travel, and it's about Black women whose hair is constantly being touched. And this game helps to depict how it is discrimination when you touch Black women's hair. When you go in to play this game, you can actually hit back the hands while they touch your hair. Everybody who has played this game kind of gets the feeling to understand what it feels like as a Black woman whose hair is being constantly touched. The other example I have is one of me in the Swiss military, because when the pandemic hit here in Switzerland, the instructions and all the information about the pandemic was in German, and they didn't translate any of that to any of the languages used by the migrants or by people who have speak a different language. So what we ended up doing in the Swiss military, because I am part of the military, is to make an online educative clip, which can be found on the website of the Swiss Civil Service, with instructions on a low-level entry way for children and adults of migration background. And on this clip, I did a form of Corona dance that just tells you, you need to wash your hands, you need to disinfect, and the social distancing that you need to actually keep. Finally, the positive results of Afrofuturism, of Afrofeminine futurism, it helps with documentation, it transcends boundaries, it has educational purposes, it helps with transformations, it solidifies us, it helps with representation of Black people, and it helps us take over our narrative with ownership. The takeaways from Afrofuturism feminists, they decolonize the race stereotypes in a cyberspace and challenges the gender norms. They normalize the relationships between women and technology. They dismantle the structural power relationships that breed inequalities. They empower each other to take ownership of their narratives and be their own agents. And they use the cyberspace and internet as a means of freedom and from social constructs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Apio. We're going to move forward with Dr. Ronaldo Anderson. And for those joining us, we're also going to post all the presentations in our chat room and make them available. So without that, Dr. Anderson.
Thank you for the invitation to make this presentation. If Dr. Richmond, I don't know if you were going to do screen share during the presentation, or you could just post it in the chat. I was told I had 7 minutes, so I'll try and be succinct, as tight as possible. What is Afrofuturism? Afrofuturism is the location of people of African descent in time and space with agency. And it is the contemporary expression and manifestation of the Black speculative tradition that has been informally and formally expressed in the 19th century in the diaspora. And examples of that in the 19th century are people like Martin Delaney, Sutton Griggs, and others. And it emerges out of a context of resistance to, as an anti-slavery movement, as a struggle against scientific racism, and as some people might think of it as a utopian project to imagine an alternative to white supremacy. A more digestible way of thinking about it in contemporary terms, when you're mapping it in relation to diaspora futures, I use the term going from teraflop to exaflop. When you're talking about, you're dealing with the pull of the future, the push of the present, and the weight of history. These all come together in terms of when Afrofuturist scholars and creatives develop projects. in contemporary times, it emerges during its coinage in the 90s by people like Mark Derry and others in conversation with Greg Tate during what they call the Web 1.0 era. And at current moment we're in, something I described as Web 2.0 is during this convergence of social media in the middle of the first decade of the 21st century, with platforms like LinkedIn and Facebook and other platforms. And recently we've transitioned into what they call Web 3 or Web 3.0, where within the next several years, we'll be daily, or we'll be dealing with an exaflop of information, where we're dealing with trillions and trillions of bits of information that are going to cause a convergence in terms of how we learn, how we engage capitalism and political activity. There are three geographies to pay attention to of what's going to be happening with Afrofuturism in the wake of the end of globalization. The first perspective I want to talk about is what I call the geography of reason. Afrofuturism shifts the geography of reason. It destabilizes Eurocentric frameworks from having the ability to dictate what people of African descent should be imagining or working on for themselves. Or, as some people might argue, moving beyond what people call Euro-modernity to the global South, looking at three things. What does it mean to be human? It questions, what does freedom and liberation look like, and what is its justification? Now, in relation to the geography of reason, Afrofuturism 2.0, the second wave, or the contemporary wave, is a Pan-African transnational movement at the moment, influenced by, as I previously mentioned, social media, the formation of the African Union in 2005, the emergence of platform capitalism, which became even much more pronounced during the COVID-19 pandemic, when a lot of production and capital and labor moved online, in particular in more technologically advanced countries, even though important workers were not able to benefit from that. But many people in the academic realm or other professional realms became much more familiar with Zoom platforms. Also, the proliferation of blockchain technology and biotech. And also, Afrofuturism 2.0 is emerging in relation to existential threats facing African people, such as climate change, or what I would call the afterlife of white supremacy, with the MAGA Trump movement here in the United States and other movements in the European Union and in other geographical spaces in the globe. Afrofuturism 2.0 is characterized by 5 dimensions that include metaphysics, aesthetics, theoretical and applied science, social science, and programmatic spaces. All of these dimensions have emerged around curated projects and or local movements that in their aggregate, we identify as part of the Afrofuturism 2.0 phenomenon. Now, globalization began to unravel in 2008 with the collapse of the global economy and economic crisis that followed. However, during the Trump administration, deglobalization began to accelerate in terms of the isolationism of American domestic and foreign policy. However, globalization really officially ended with the beginning of the Eurasian land war between Russia and Ukraine. It destabilized global supply chains around food distribution. So different parts of the world are experiencing famine. The other aspect of deglobalization was how delicate supply chains were impacted around goods and services moving around the world. So now we're moving from this unipolar world that was constructed after World War II to a multipolar world where there's going to be expressed more as regionalism in terms of different regions of the world looking after their own interests, I think people are, and what I would call dark speculative futurity, where people of color are beginning to construct their own sense of how to imagine their futures. When we're talking about geopolitics, people are revisiting the heartland theory that was advanced by people like Halford Mackinder that talks about the struggle for global power now is on the world island being the landmass, the Eurasian landmass that goes from Spain all the way to the Pacific Ocean, in terms of what that's going to look like and how the regionalization of the world is going to impact global politics. And finally, what is a geography of success going to look like in relation to Afrofuturism? During globalization, the term offshoring was a popular nomenclature to describe how people would move production services to other countries, but now it's going to be characterized by nearshoring, where production is going to be returning back to certain countries. For example, the recent development where the United States is moving some of its microchip processes back to the United States as a result of recent legislation, and much of the the economic development in North America is going to mostly take place between Mexico, Canada, and the United States, with less of a reliance of other regions. Other implications for a geography of success are developing a solidarity economy based upon the region that you live in. What people would call the region, the Gulf of Guinea. And what I mean by Gulf of Guinea in West Africa, largely from Ghana all the way down to Cameroon, they have the ability to develop a regional solidarity economy, because they have a lot of the things that they need to become much more autonomous in terms of regional influence. Southern Africa with South Africa also have the ability to develop this type of economy. In particular, out of Latin America, I believe it's been discussed that Colombia will probably become an economic, will be able to be a part of the economic sphere of influence that the NAFTA countries of Mexico, the United States, and Canada are putting together. And some of the implications in this geography of success are who's going to have the ability to adapt to this emerging nanotech biocognitive economic transformation that's going to occur over the next several years, where the globalization era was influenced a lot by digital technology transforming economics. Now we're moving into a sphere in the next several years where biology will have a much bigger impact on the next economic transformation that capitalism is going to undergo. And that's going to look like and impact Afrofuturism in different parts of the world differently, in terms of how that transformation interacts with those local African people of African descent. Afro-German perspectives are going to look different from what's going on in North America, and the Afro-Brazilian community is going to adapt after under the Lula administration, in terms of how they're going to engage this geography of success after globalization. And so while they will have many similarities in terms of mapping their futures, each of these aspects or Afrofuturist perspectives are going to look like based upon how each of these regions are going to position themselves in a multipolar world. And with that, I'll stop right there and turn the microphone back over to the moderator.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anderson. And we are going to ensure that all of the present to be posted in the chat and on the webpage. We've been joined by Zyko dos Santos from Brazil. And so we'd like to give Zyka an opportunity to present.
Hello, hi. My English are not so good, and I am in Harvard, and my translate and a moment is just a moment.
Okay.
Do you want to have Alexa go for her 2 minutes and then go back to Zaka while she?
Okay, Zyka's working on her translator now, and so we will give a few moments to our PhD candidate, Alexa White.
My name is Alexa White. I can.
But just let it be known that when Zyka comes on, she may interrupt you, okay?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just noticing the echoing. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Alexa White. I am.
People still hear you.
There you go. There you go.
Okay. I am an agroecologist.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, that's what you meant. No.
Someone has their
Oh.
someone has their sound up. We had it working.
Mine is up.
Are the volumes down?
Okay, just
Okay. Hi, I'm an agroecologist from the University of Michigan, a PhD candidate, and I'm happy to be here talking about how food sovereignty is connected to the Afrofuturism space. And so I think it's relevant to think about our history when we think about our future. So I didn't really think that agriculture and food sovereignty really had much to do with me as an identifying as a Black woman until I kind of thought about my grandfather. So my grandfather was a sharecropper in South Carolina and worked the land with his family, moved to New Jersey, and taught me everything that I know about agriculture as it exists within the Black community. I come from a family of, as many of us do, descendants of chattel slavery. And so thinking about how we cooked the food, how we grew our crops in our backyard, how we designed our meals and socialized around those meals was really important for me growing up and still exists today in the way that we think about food sovereignty. And so I've been mentioning this word food sovereignty a lot. Food sovereignty is people's right to define their agriculture and food policy without interruption of any other source. So when you think about where your food comes from, who grew it, where was it, what is the best season for it to grow in, exactly how do you form your ideas around this food and what cultural relevance does it have to you? So when we think about the future of food and the future of how we will have control over where our food is coming from, it is important to think about that movement of food sovereignty as well as exactly where we're going to move forward to. And so what's the problem with today and how can we have hope for the future? Right now, in terms of the deep time, we live in a food regime era of corporate agriculture, which is characterized by monocrops and lots of ways that chemicals can enter our food. And so in terms of Afrofuturism, it's really critical for us to think about how we're connected to our food and exactly how we're going to exist as a community.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And again, we'll make sure all the presentations are posted. Zyka, we're ready for you. Just want to unmute Zyka. Okay.
I just asked her to unmute. We're good.
Okay.
We've moved on. We're moving. We're working.
I
it
am
out.
chat.
Okay, go ahead. Can we hear? Do you have your volume?
I can hear her. He's there. He's on the screen.
I think she's muted,
Guillermo is on the screen.
but I think she's muted.
She was muted. I unmuted her, and then I don't know what happened. She just muted again.
There you go, Zyka. Go ahead, talk.
Oh, he's unmuted.
Yes.
Oh, he's not. He doesn't have his sound connected.
Can anyone hear her?
No, I don't hear either one.
Oh, she's asking to be admitted.
He's admitted. He's literally in the
in.
meeting. I'm looking at him on the screen.
I can't hear him.
I think he doesn't have his sound connected.
I could have asked him to check. if
No,
it's-
he
Ask
doesn't.
him
My
to exit and come
computer
back.
says he doesn't have his sound connected.
Yeah. So what we need is for Guillermo to exit and come back in because he doesn't have his sound. Oh, now I see his sound. So let's try this. I'm asking him to unmute. So sound is connected, but he has to unmute in order for people to hear him.
Unmute.
I love technology and at the same
Mhm.
time.
Okay, well, we're gonna have to go to Dr. Kelly. We'll come back to Zyka. Give Dr. Kelly the mic and let's go.
Okay, thank you for the invitation also. I'm going to hop back to what Dr. Anderson said, actually, because what we're doing here in Germany is actually happening in real time. So it's literally the theory being transformed into the practice through the first German Institute for Black German Arts and Culture. I'm the founding director. We're opening next year. And practically the case is that we've shifted from the post-colonial through the decolonial to Afrofuturism, which is a space beyond given structures, especially beyond white supremacist definitions of especially what aesthetics would actually mean. And at our institute, we're working with the digital, for example, with digital set and costume design. So you can imagine a stage. We will be running a stage with about 50 seats. So it's a small stage in the center of Düsseldorf, which is in West Germany near the Dutch border. And working with digital design, digital stage design, digital costume design, but also running online exhibitions, as we've seen through the BZAM movement, the Black Speculative Arts movement, how they were working during Corona, that we're transforming everything from an analog space into a digital space. We'll be opening a digital library, as well as creating a digital archive. And in the future, connecting also to the blockchain and having our own cryptocurrency one day, where you would be able to buy tickets, for example, and so on. We're very invested in cooperating with what we call here the Global South. So that would be all African countries, South America, the Caribbean. Presently, we have cooperations in Ghana, but also in Jamaica, where our shows will actually be traveling to Jamaica in real time, though, not only digitally. This is happening at the beginning of the year. So this is literally an example of everything Dr. Anderson said in theory actually taking place in practice and running as of next year.
Mhm.
That was a short 3-minute presentation, I hope.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Zyka, were you able to get your translator on? Can we move to Zyka for a moment? Is she able to get it to work?
Let's see, he's on. Let's see if he'll unmute. Jeremy, are you ready to talk to us? Oh, I asked you to unmute and then I muted you. Sorry. Try that again.
And I'm sorry. You translate. My English not so good. I'm
Okay.
Portuguese and
Translate.
Brazilian and in Harvard
So
today.
Jeremy is unmuted. I think we could have him try to speak to see if we can hear him, because currently he's connected. He is, according to Zoom, it says he's connected to the audio and he is not muted. Oh, he just muted himself.
And
Okay. All right. I just asked him to unmute.
And Guillermo could also chat.
Oh, Guillermo, you could also type it into the chat as well.
And you could just.
I don't know who's in the waiting room. If you've just entered the meeting, please rename yourself. Okay, Zyka, if you could,
it's send. Ok, meu nome é Zyka dos Santos, eu sou multiartista, pesquisadora, cientista do afrofuturismo. Eu sou curadora de arte digital, sou designer, e eu atuo aqui no Brasil como coordenadora geral da Black Speculative Art Movement. Nesse momento eu não estou no Brasil, estou em Harvard, porque vai acontecer a Conferência de Estudos Afro-Latino-Americano, onde vamos apresentar aí toda a trajetória da Black Speculative Art Movement lá no Brasil, né? E o Reinaldo Anderson vai estar em conjunto comigo nessa apresentação. Eu trabalho aqui com o afrofuturismo lá no Brasil, né? Especificamente com criptoarte, NFT, trabalho com o afrofuturismo numa perspectiva das tecnologias e também transicionando ele para o conceito de afrofuturalidades, que é arte, ciência, tecnologia, inovação africana e afrodescendente, né? Numa perspectiva de conectar passado, presente e futuro. A gente trabalha com produções de publicações, entre outras demandas. Ultimamente, a última realização que fizemos coletivamente no Brasil foi um desfile da Black Speculative Art Movement, que aconteceu no maior evento de moda imersiva da América Latina. My English not so good. I am Portuguese and translator and Google Translator, and a presentation in Harvard in Portuguese.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think what she was saying at the end of that was you can also utilize your Google Translate sometimes, and you could just put your phone to the mic, and then that will translate that into the language that you're most comfortable with. Yes, we got that. Okay, perfect.
May I add? Because
yes, please.
I understood some of what she was saying. The Afro-Brazilians have a unique perspective on Afrofuturism that they call Afrofuturismo, and they are adapting it to the local African descent culture there in Brazil. And so it resembles some of what the North Americans have been doing, and she is going to talk a lot more about what Afrofuturism in Brazil looks like at Harvard tomorrow.
So you'll be able to catch that. Zyka, if you put that link in the chat, she'll be presenting at Harvard University tomorrow, and you'll be able to hear that, and she'll probably be repeating some of this information at Harvard University. We have not experimented with closed caption on Zoom, but there is an option for closed caption as well. Okay, Zyka, we appreciate your being with us this morning and evening. We're going to move forward now with Dr. Lawana Richmond's presentation. We're going to.
Yes, obrigado.
Obrigado.
Okay.
Thank you, obrigada.
Okay, let me pull up my presentation. I'm over here. I'm behind the curtain now. I got to come out from behind the curtain. Oh, thank you. Okay, brethren. All right, here we go. Let's see here. Let's see if I can figure out how to make this work. Boom. All right. Boom. Share screen. Do. And then here. And this will be quick. And oh, is everyone? Yeah, you're seeing
Yes.
it. All right, cool. So I'm going to talk about Afrofuturism in real life and beyond. because that's kind of where I'm at these days. I'm creating in-person events and experiences as well as virtual reality.
The audience here can't see them, so we can switch.
Yes, sure. Sorry, y'all. All right, we good now? Everybody's good? Okay. So Afrofuturism may have as many definitions as it does definers. As you can tell by everything that we've heard. For me, it's probably tied most closely to the principle of Sankofa, which essentially says it's never too late to go back and fix it, typically depicted by a bird with an egg in its mouth with its head turning back to represent the connection between the past, the present, and the future. And I like to start here because everything that I do is informed by everything we already know about the past and the present. So imagine that the future represents endless possibilities. And I always encourage us to imagine the best possible outcome and reverse engineer the journey from here to there. And then with that, within that context, I'll talk about kind of where I came in. I started producing Afrofuturism events in real life, largely focused on comic book culture as a way to bring people together. And then once people are in the space, to engage in discourse around more substantive topics. In 2018, my first event was an Afrofuturism Summit at an annual event we do in San Diego called the Koumba Fest, where I actually had storytellers and speakers and filmmakers and authors on the steps in the atrium of the theater so that people could come for free. The next thing I did was an Afrofuturism Dream Tank where I had poets, artists, writers, financial planners, all speaking to issues of the past and the present to inform conversations about an imagined future. Most of my work is grounded in appreciative inquiry. And then I did the Afrofuturism Lounge, which is now in its 5th iteration during San Diego Comic-Con, which is the largest comic book convention in the world, where we get tens of thousands of people who come to San Diego for that purpose. And then again, they come to see the Black artists, writers, creators. And then while they're there, I kind of sneak in some discourse around more substantive topics. And so how it's going, last year I launched an event called AfroCon, which is the Afrofuturism Consciousness Convention, which is a standalone event. And just to give you an idea of numbers, the very first Afrofuturism Lounge, 750 people showed up. The very first Afrofuturism Consciousness Convention, 1,000 people showed up. And, you know, I've been presenting and speaking at events virtually and on campus. Was introduced to Dr. Anderson, and after doing some work and learning a little bit more about future scanning, he actually invited me to coordinate a San Diego chapter of the Black Speculative Arts Movement, which was launched in November of 2021. In terms of application and relevance to why we're gathered here today, when you think about the Sustainable Development Goals, creating space for people to be unstuck and think about possibilities helps to move them in the direction of change. And what I forgot to mention in the previous slide was that I've started veering into virtual reality, augmented reality, and some work in the field of extended reality. Some considerations when you talk about this space, particularly we'll call VR, AR, artificial intelligence, algorithmic justice, we can call it extended reality, which was part of the description for the presentation. Some of the considerations are highlighted in the documentary film Coded Bias, in the sense that algorithms, facial recognition, artificial intelligence, as a coder, when I was a young coder many years ago, we used to say GIGO, and it's basically garbage in, garbage out. So basically artificial intelligence, technology are informed by the data that are the data provided. To give you an example of how bad data can impact the output from artificial intelligence, there was an experiment done where there was AI put on Twitter. And so all of its learning took place within the Twitterverse. And it started off very congenial. Hi, I'm an artificial intelligence robot, and I'm just here to get to know you all. And within hours, it had evolved from this nice kind of Pollyanna persona into this racist, hate spewing, vitriolic persona based on the data that it received from scouring the Twitterverse. And so the considerations are there in terms of AI learning what we teach it. And then the Algorithmic Justice League talks about how artificial intelligence is impacted in that way. And even things like facial recognition. Just last night, I was watching a series where they talked about how they were doing facial recognition to identify individuals who are on wanted lists for the FBI or Interpol. And the level of error, the error rate was exponentially greater based on the amount of melanin in your skin. So the darker skinned you were, the more likely you were to be recognized as a threat, regardless of the actuality of the situation. And so in terms of what's next for me, there's Dr. Lonnie Brooks, who is not with us today, has been working with virtual reality, his Afro-Rhythms for the Future. He started on the ground in real life card game, and now he's actually integrating it into a hybrid experience where he's using the artificial intelligence art generator to create the artifacts that we imagine while playing the game. And it's basically a game where you're given like different tensions, and within a group setting, you identify or imagine potential artifacts that would exist in the future based on the conditions presented in the game. And using artificial intelligence, we're able to use keywords to generate images of those things. What I'm actually embarking upon with the Metaverse Lab is taking my in-person events, which even if everyone wanted to come to whatever city I'm producing the event in, logistically, it would be very, very challenging, but figure out ways to integrate virtual reality into the experience. And I will say my research on work-life, employee engagement, innovation, collaboration, and strategic planning, I'm learning that virtual reality has a different level of collaboration, integration, relationship building as an advantage over, say, Zoom. Right now, we're on this Zoom meeting and we're all having whatever experience we're having, but we're not necessarily able to engage with each other in a way that resembles in real life. To give you an example, in real life, you're going to a meeting and there's a person that you really want to talk to who's going to be at the meeting. If you're strategic, you arrive early to intercept the person and say a few words with them in person, face to face before the meeting starts, or you wait and catch them after the meeting to say those few words. And it's remarkable how much business can get taken care of in those small conversations and the types of relationships that can develop and grow. Zoom does not necessarily support that type of interaction. Virtual reality does. So virtual reality gives you that spatial context where you can actually walk over to a person and have a private conversation with them. I won't say in real life, but in virtual life. And so these are all things to consider. In support of that, I also have been given a residency at the Indigenous Futurism Institute at UC San Diego, as well as a residency at the UC San Diego Maverick Studio in affiliation with Origami Air. I'll be relaunching my podcast video series that I started a couple of years ago. And I will continue to do podcasts with the Afronauts Collective. I am here actually as a board member of the EdFu Foundation, which actually made this space possible for us. And I'm planning to do an Afrofuturism Dream Tank in person 3/20/23 in San Diego on the vernal equinox. And it will be an opportunity for thinkers to come together and connect in real life and experience some extended reality, as well as engage in discourse to set intentions related to your personal future, the future of your business or organization, as well as how we collaborate collectively to help move society in a more positive direction. Thank you.
Sorry for that. I had
It's
to break
okay.
away for a quick
It's all
moment.
good. I got a few minutes.
Yes. So if those people want to stay for question and answers, that'd be great. So is it for me to share my screen or? how do we
Yes,
do
you can
this?
share your screen.
Let's see. Where's my share screen?
Right there, that
options?
little
Okay,
green.
great. And then desktop. And then I want to share.
So is your PowerPoint open?
Yes.
So you should be able to go to it.
Let's
So, just share your entire screen and then go to the PowerPoint.
Can
Yeah,
anyone
now
see
go
that?
to,
Can you see it?
no, it's not on the screen. So wait, go back to Zoom. Click,
Cancel.
no, you click cancel, that's why you're not sharing. Click the green thing, go to the desktop,
Yeah, did that.
and then click share.
Yeah, did that. But nothing's happening.
Zoom wants to share. Oh, click the screen.
Right here.
Click that. Now click share.
Okay, let's see what we got going on here.
All right, and now go ahead and start your presentation.
Can they do it right here? Can you
Yeah,
see me?
you're right. It's on the
You're on.
screen. Yeah,
Oh, they can see me? Okay,
yeah, they
great.
can see you. So now you can go ahead and
right,
go to the
perfect.
beginning, and then click PowerPoint show down there in the corner right there.
Which one, this one?
Yeah, I can't see where your cursor
It's all
is.
right. They can see this. This is the best part.
Okay,
You know what
so
I mean?
go to view. Oh,
Yeah, they can see this.
and then,
Great.
all right.
Okay, great. I guess you don't
There
see
you
it.
go. Boom.
Super, thank you very much. So you are here today for Afrofuturism after globalization, Africa Diaspora Futures. So I will talk about Africa Diaspora Futures with you all today. Most recently, the United States will always promote human rights and the values enshrined in the UN Charter in our own country and around the world. The president said this September 21st, addressing the United Nations. And as you all heard from our meetings over the past couple of days, human rights violations is high on the list. And we want to make sure that all those in the diaspora are respected and afforded human rights as afforded and mentioned in the UNH Charter. And we know here in America, as mentioned on the opening day, George Floyd was mentioned many times over. And we want to make sure that if we use him as a banner and a pillar of our discussions, that even in the United States, we want to make sure that everyone gets afforded their human rights. So that's that. I want to thank all of our panelists, Dr. Luana Richmond, Ronaldo Anderson, Madam Yvonne Appeal, Brandele Omolo, Zyka Santos, Natasha Kelly, and our PhD candidate, Alexa White. I want to thank them all for being here today. So as we move on Diaspora Futures, Blacks in the USA Impact the World Development, very powerful stuff. We need to think about that, especially as many in the diaspora use the Black liberation movement as their pillar of rights in their own countries. We know that we are used as a model for freedom and development around the world. So what if people of African descent, the diaspora, were united? What does that really mean? There's a lot of power behind this photograph, and how do we utilize this power and energy for the things that we're asking for within this forum? We've heard the term Black Lives Matter mentioned many, many, many times over, but some of us really don't know what that means. But we do know that with the Arab Spring, with the advent of the iPhone, we were able to witness the Black Spring. The iPhone played a critical role in moving people and movements around the world quickly. And we're looking for the next great technological advancement, possibly to join the diaspora. So there are many methods being used in forecasting analysis on predictive analytics to decipher and to establish policy and decision-making. Here, I mentioned just a few of them. We at the African American Future Society utilize the Futures Wheel. We utilize backcasting, some Delphi survey methodologies, and some cross-impact analysis. Some of you, of course, are used with SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so there are a plethora of ideas you could be using, but in the futures methodology world, and we have a set tools that we utilize, and I'll go through those now. Because as we're here at the forum, we are all wondering, well, what are we going to be using to galvanize our work, and what are we going to be using to establish policy? And these are some tools and techniques that you may be able to use. So what we utilize is a methodology called foresight. And at our forum, many of the speakers were saying, oh, we need to disaggregate the data. We need the data. We need the data. Well, the data is already here. It's already been analyzed. What we need to do is extract that data from various organizations and then to massage it and analyze it deeper and further to produce the type of reports we need to move the policies and establish the policies that we'd like. So the OECD already has a strategic foresight unit. We don't have to run and make more information. What we have to do is partner with these organizations and get that data, and then to join organizations, because many of us are left out of the real power sharing or seats at the table. So here, you may not know that strategic foresight played a role in the development of post-apartheid South Africa right after Nelson Mandela came out of prison. Oh, you don't see that? Oh, you don't see the images. Well, that's okay.
Okay.
I'll make this available. I'm noting that you might not see the graphics on your side, but the graphics show up on my side, unfortunately. So I will then tell you what's being listed in the graphics. Basically, I have all of their logos there, so you know the organization by their logo. If you do not, then I'll mention it here. So I'm also establishing a link to the documents that I'm making reference to. So these are all established facts. I don't make up this stuff. I try not to, and you can Google everything I say while I'm saying it in real time. So when Nelson Mandela was free, roughly in 1991, they came up with a discussion called the Montfleur analysis, which basically talked about what would be the future implications of a Black man being freed in South Africa after being in jail for 27 some odd years. So, and that again, as mentioned here, they wanted to know what South Africa will look like in 2002. And as you know, the president of South Africa today is being challenged with his presidency, and he may lose his seat, right? Because possibly there are some other things going on in that. Foresight and use is also being done at UNESCO. UNESCO has a foresight unit. It's called the Futures Lab, and at UNESCO, there's a link there. It's called Imagine Africa Futures, where UNESCO has been moving with some African leaders to try to train them in futures methodologies on how to advance the policies on the continent. What we're looking for, however, is where are the Brazilian futurists, which is where Zyka comes in, and how do other governments, and especially within the United States, which is I have some postcards with some analysis on some US futuring policies that was established back in the 1980s, but then it was defunded, and then Al Gore took all the documents and created his organization. And so some of you now know about Al Gore talking about climate change, but he was able to grab a lot of documentation from the government to create his organization. So the European Commission also has a strategic foresight unit. And I'm mentioning this because other governments have future strategic analysis units within their government, and yet we as Black people in the diaspora do not have ours. And so we need to establish ours. The next one, the African Union. So the African Union presents the baseline, best, worst, and surprise case possibilities for African governance. The African Union creates what's called the Africa Governance Report back in 2021. It's only been done 2 times. The president of South Africa actually headed up that unit within the African Union, and they came up with a futures research document. I left a reference here on the slide, and I'll be referencing that later on in the presentation. And as you know, the African Union has a goal of African Union 2063, which is linked to the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals. But as you know, the Brundtland Commission, the former Secretary General of the United Nations, came up with a sustainable development phraseology that some consider to be oxymoronic anyway, right? Because how do you have sustainable development? Because the development absorbs natural resources, and therefore that's unsustainable, right? So there's a lot of controversy behind that, and they call it very oxymoronic in its present use. The UNDP also has a foresight manual you can use if you want some training and you want to figure out, well, what is this? How does this work? You can get some foresight training from the UNDP. And I'm mentioning all these international organizations because the information that has been asked for while we're at this forum is already there. Disaggregating data is already there. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. What we need to do is extract the data that's already been produced, analyze it, regurgitate it, and spit it back out so that it's more favorable to the things that we're looking for. It's no need to go back like another 20 years to recreate the data. All I'm saying is the data is there. It's already within the international organizations. The tools are there. The methodologies are there. What's lacking is the training. And again, some of you who may not be familiar with the word foresight, there's a definition right there, right? Foresight is the umbrella term for those innovative strategic planning, policy formulations, and solution design methods that don't predict or forecast the future, but work with alternative futures, which is what we were touching on when we talked about Afrofuturism, right? So Afrofuturism is made up of a lot of artistic groups, artists, musicians, filmmakers, authors, writers, poets. And so they are already implanting an alternative future within people's minds. When you go to the movie, when you go see Wakanda, when you go see Black Panther, Marvel, look at Star Trek, you already have an image of what the future looks like, but you may not have a ladder or a pathway on how to actually get there. And so what you want to do is you want to couple some of the Afrofuturism ideology and facts and movements that they're doing with some of the scientific mechanisms. And if you can merge those two together, that's a real powerful force. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I have this scientific methodology that I'm trying to work with, trying to share with people. I most recently did a project with the Black Speculative Arts Movement at Carnegie Hall in New York in February. And so the thought is if we can share this with everyone, then we can kind of get there in step so that just not a few of us are there, but we all can get there together. So in Dubai, they created the Dubai Future Forum, most recently held the forum to talk about the future of the world. The United Arab Emirates and the entire Arab world is thinking about a future. And unfortunately, there were no Black African or Black representation at that meeting. These are the types of things that I'm trying to share with people to say, look, while we're here, which is great, we also need to be other places and disperse our energy all across the planet within the diaspora so that our voices are being heard. Because right now we're concentrated in just one space right now. And we need to understand that, you know, the cake is being carved up even while we're here today. So if you talk about the scramble for Africa that was done back in the 1970s, 1980s, there's a new scramble for Africa and the diaspora and its relativity of, you know, foresight, computers, natural, you know, resources, food consumption as it relates to Russia disrupting roughly 33% of the food grain around the world. Who do you think is going to get the food, right? So if we are powerless, then we don't get the food. Okay, so so if you want to look at the Dubai Forum, I put a link here, and when you watch it, it is just absolutely phenomenal what they're thinking about. And then if you're looking at it in terms of Afrofuturism, well, if you're already embedding in the minds of young people, like they did in China, about the advancement of being progressive, about being modern, and how they turned the whole Chinese economy around in less than 30 years, they basically alleviated poverty and moved standard of living at such a high level that now that we look at the Chinese as leaders on the free world, right? So I say free and I use quotes, but the thought here is that's the type of mindset that we need for the diaspora community. We need an entire, like, just, I don't want to say a revelation of everyone, of every young child, especially under the age of 30. We need to make sure that these young people have instilled in them a drive for the future of advancement, as opposed to just the prisoner pipeline reality that happens, right? So I share that with you. So the African American Future Society utilizes artificial intelligence with an organization out of London called Shaping Tomorrow, where we utilize over 90,000 internet resources to extract data and come up with our own assessments and reports. And if you want to join this, you can. I can make this available to you. So foresight methods used in the federal government. So a lot of us here are from the United States, as we mentioned earlier, Black Americans have been, pivotal in the movement of the freedom liberation around the world. And within this chart here, oh, you don't see the chart, so it's sad. So in this chart here, basically, I'll make it available to you in a chat, but you can see that the #1 trend analysis they're using across most government agencies is mentioned in this chart. Oh, you don't see that one either. Okay, so the World Bank also, I did a search on the World Bank on the word Africa, and I think I received something like over 881 million hits. That lets you know that there's already resources available. You can get extracting data from there, and there is a link down there for that. Oh, you don't see that one too. So sorry, guys. So McKinsey and Company. So some of you might be thinking about, okay, well, he's talking a lot about international governmental organizations. What about the private sector? Are we not pressuring the private sector for assistance, for funding? They provide all the jobs in the world. So what does the future look like? So McKinsey and Company came out with a report called The Economic State of Black America, what it is and what it could be. And within that, the report was that 43% of Black workers earned less than $30,000 per year. So at that point, you kind of say to yourself, okay, well, what does that mean? And then at the end of the day, 25% of Black workers are in positions that are slated to be automated. That means they'll be eliminated anyway. So that's a good report to look at. So the proposal, the Diaspora Futures, to create an opportunity to develop a future conference and based on future research methods and realities of the globalization paradigm. What would the Diaspora Futures look if we were able to make it real? So out of the African Union report, there were some scenarios that were mentioned. As I mentioned, this is the freshest, latest information out there. The Africa scenarios assuming full diaspora integration. Africa is politically and economically integrated continent, including diaspora communities. So basically the African Union basically said that the diaspora is called the sixth region. And so the thought is, as we are here in the diaspora, and a lot of us have aspirations to go live in Africa, the question is, what does that look like even if you were to go live in Africa, right? I mean, is that the liberation ideology that the diaspora has for the future? The other idea that came out of the African Union scenarios was the development and capabilities of the fourth industrial revolution, which some of you, it's all digitizing, boosting Africa contributions, ownership of technology and innovation. And the thought on that would be Africa would be thriving. One of the other subjects that came out was ensuring the sovereignty of African states under the authority of the AU, freeing the continent from excessive international interference and discouraging an unbalanced focus. And what does that mean? I mean, at the end of the day, we just talked about the fact that the food has been disrupted by the war in Ukraine. People are starving. We have climate change. We have flooding. We have a lack of ability to read on the continent. And so if we allow, and I say we allow, meaning the international community, who basically hold the power at what it means for international trade and agreement, if the sovereignty of African states and the authority of the AU remain, does that mean that the governmental structure does not include Pan-Africanism and therefore there will be no integration, which a lot of Pan-Africanists are looking for? And then does that mean that if we're looking at the 2063 African Union agenda, does that mean that the powers that be and the structure that didn't exist remains in power and structure for the next 40 years? That means 40 more years of misery. And then the last part is the continent's capacity to imagine and explore broader possibilities for African governance and enabling Africa to lead in the frontier. And this is basically full acceptance and realization of an African future that is prosperous, which allows for computational advances, space exploration, satellite deployment, and space travel. And these types of futures then relate to a thought on a futures wheel, and then I just made some thoughts here. And that means, like, if diaspora is fully integrated into the continent, then there's a possibility that the reparations have been exhausted because everyone used their reparations to go and move to Africa to basically buy homes and establish businesses. You maybe get a new nation state. Some people talk about that in the argument. New trade opportunities, possibly the increase of joblessness because now the diaspora is competing with jobs on the ground, but then that may also afford more freedom of movement and more opportunities to create more entrepreneurship. Diaspora families more diverse. That means now that because the diaspora is more integrated, then they can intermarry and find people that they want to have children with. And then, of course, possibly more global peace, because now that the diaspora has moved out of the countries that they've been protesting, now the whites and blacks live more peacefully because they've been separated. That's a possibility, right? Realizing for industrial revolution, the 4 IRs, possibly it increases in government destabilization because now more people have access to technology and can basically oppose their governments much more quickly, like most recently in China, where they tried to crack down on COVID-19. And you saw the movement in China, which probably happened with the power of an iPhone. If the Industrial Revolution does occur fully, then the diaspora social advancement might increase more free movement of people. However, the negative might increase the wealth gap, because now you have those people that are more technologically advanced, and then those people that are not, don't get a chance to earn more money. We have advances in medicine and more time for creativity. And lastly, sovereignty of African states and the authority of the AU. This means that the African power structure remains in its present form for the next 40 years because the goal is Africa 2063. The question is whether the young people in Africa under 30 can wait 40 more years. So if all this remains the way it is, then the potential, and these types of futures wheels can be extended out to 20 different type of levels. I'm just showing you one level, but some of these are extended out 50 levels, and then you have analysts, people who write scenarios based on the end results. And so if the power structure remains in its present form for the next 40 years, maybe there's a threat to diaspora futures, and maybe the diaspora aspirations never realized. The country is weakened in all areas of protection because there's no unified African force on the continent. There's no way to protect the oceans or the land or the resources. So that now every African country just begins to be a victim of international concerns. If this potential happens, maybe there's a failure to extract diaspora and increases the wealth gap. Increased marginalization due to 40-year additional rule, and China and Russia carve Africa up based on arms and grain. These types of potentials are what's being discussed at a high level. I'm just sharing with you what's in some of these reports, and I'm just putting them and linking them in ways that might not be available because I'm looking at 20 documents at once. And that's what I'm proposing here for the Africa Forum and for the participants here, is to consider this ideology and methodology and to extract the data that's in the reports that's already there for us to look at, and to begin to string them together and write the scenarios that we're really looking for to develop the future that we're looking for. I created in America the Black Commission on the Future of Black America while at Carnegie Hall. I'd like to make my artificial intelligence technology available to the forum members. And I'd like to join, I have 300 people on my commission, which are made up of academics and business leaders from around the world, and make them available to the Africa Forum. So that's what I'm proposing with my presentation today, and just want to say thank you. I think we have a little time for question and answers. Oh, okay. Yes, 2 ladies in the front. I saw 4 hands, so that's probably all we have. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1.
Thank you so much. It's been like utterly fascinating, and I like how we're taking it from discussion of the technology to the experience of the culture to the policies. Like, I love how robust this conversation has been. I'm curious about you folks. So I'm glad that you mentioned AI, because this is something that I think about a lot, just being on the cutting edge technology, and how right now in the context of the US, but also, I mean, in many places, the writers of the algorithms that are currently in use, the folks in the rooms designing those things do not reflect us. And so, as Sister mentioned already, the probability of mistaken identity is already exponentially increases with the presence of melanin. Now, with more data that those algorithms can improve, However, those algorithms are also in the hands of, at least in the context of the United States, government, city governments, federal governments that I can't feel like I trust. So on one hand, there's like, this is the case in San Francisco, where now we have an actual like robots that have been deputized to use lethal force in very specific cases. So my question is this, right? Like, what are your thoughts on how we might be able to use this technology among ourselves as people, and like what can be the case for AI for Black people in particular? I would love to hear anyone's thoughts on this, because I feel very torn. It feels like a lose-lose situation. If they have our data, it's more accurate. They don't have our data, it's less accurate, and there can be like the end of Black life either way.
So you bring up some really like important points, but all right, so I have to start with the premise that I think that we need to accept and embrace. Privacy is an illusion. Period. Our DNA is in everything that we do. Our faces, there are cameras everywhere. I mean, unless you decide to like isolate and stay inside your house or wear a mask everywhere you go, your image is being captured. In terms of how we can use AI, part of it is looking at use cases, and then also supporting the technology and the use of technology by people that we trust. Trust is, you know, it goes back to relationships. And this is where, you know, I posit that we need to spend more time as we look at technology and in real life on the actual relationships. Like at this forum, I think that the positions that are being taken and the information that is being shared is very valuable. But if we don't leverage the opportunity to connect with one another and build real relationships, that's a very important lost opportunity. The other part of that is, you know, I'll go back to what I said in the beginning: garbage in, garbage out, right? GIGO it is what it is. And so what we put in has an impact. And I'll go so far as to say, even beyond facial recognition, you know, we look at employment applications, and it's not just racial bias or gender bias or ethnic bias. It's a combination of all of those things, where data has shown that resumes that include information that say that you played women's sports, or you went to a lower tier university, or whatever data the people who have decided what the parameters are have put in place, you get screened out.
Okay, I'll move on.
Yeah.
Next question. Sorry.
So real quick, I always say you also need the, like they brought up in the session this morning, like AI and legislation, make sure that we are on, you know, that we're pushing for that these things are taken care of. Whether it's here, or back in whatever state that is.
Sorry.
So for foresight data analysis, I just want to say that it's really interesting in decentralizing the really zero-sum point of view of how we do data analysis, because I come from a background of that data analysis and qualitative and mixed methods.
Yes.
So my question for you, kind of a little question, but first, one thing is after I graduated from university, I know that UNESCO and they have that information out there to exist, but there's still like such a difficulty to find information and get to it. So how can we push for ease of access for that information? Maybe is it like maybe centralizing certain data at one location for us to get? Also, how can we begin reframing our data analysis, especially quantitative analysis, from a Black or more neutral point of view, because that's something that's definitely not taught at universities. And then also, can you share how, share how that course we're talking about, because I did a little forecast analysis while I was in college, but to have that information and then understanding how I can reframe it from that perspective, from a Black-centered perspective, would be very helpful.
Thanks a lot. So, okay. Yeah, Dr. Anderson had mentioned that Afrofuturism is centered from a Black perspective. So I am working with Dr. Anderson at Temple University to try to develop a curriculum and a certificate program with a Black centrist point of view. But I'm also hoping with our member who did a presentation with HBCUs to interest HBCUs in this new technology and methodology as well. You can always go to my website and there will be, I'll make sure now that you asked again, a library where you can get this information in one central place. And then thirdly, as you talked about, just how do we make sure that even in data analysis where they were asking at the forum to disaggregate this data so that we can extract and get and propose policies with a Black centrist point of view, that's what we're trying to do. So, and that encapsulates also extracting and finding all that data that I just mentioned and gave reference to, and then pulling out all the pieces that's really pertaining to the diaspora, to Black people, to Black women, Black children, the whole 9 yards. Yes.
But can I add something to that, please, which is really important?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think there are two ways to do this. One is to go into transformation processes, like you mentioned, to actually extract from existing data. And the other, that's the way we're working, is to create our own data and actually to create the actual infrastructure where the data is itself. That's why I mentioned the Institute. This is something completely different. So we're an all Black team working with all Black experts, creating from the ground up, which might be something very special or specific in a German context, because let's say Black aesthetics, Black knowledge has not been defined as it has over the decades in the United States, for example. So we have a completely different point where we can start from. But what is the same, actually, is the fact that everything that is Black in let's say, the New World has been defined through the eyes or through definitions of whiteness. So in whichever way you extract your data, you will also in a way always be including something white, if just to say very symbolically, right? And this is why we turned to actually say that we want to create our own institution, which not only allows us to create our own algorithms defined on our own understanding of what Black German identity is, and this is the major part of it, but also creating the infrastructure that goes with it. In this sense, it's an institute, what we call an institute. So it's not only a physical house, it's also everything digital to go with it, right? So it's the servers, it's the host, it's the development itself. It's literally everything to be able to come up with what we can freely call Black German, but is not only differentiating this from what is white, but also positioning ourselves within the diaspora as something specific in comparison to what is African American or what is Afro-Brazilian. Black German has its own history that goes back centuries, which is never really considered or taken into consideration in Black context. So this helps us on this end as well. And I think it's really important to take both strands into consideration, A, the transforming processes, and B, the creating processes. So the creating processes literally starts after globalization, which means after centering whiteness. That would be my literal translation of what after globalization means.
No,
If I could
absolutely.
add on to that, Niels?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
I just wanted to give an example. I completely agree with you. And we need to have ourselves at these top tier positions, people like you who are really collecting data. Because, for example, in 2017, we didn't have any data on Black people in Switzerland. So we made a team who sat at the borders collecting this data for us, and we were able to actually provide a racial profiling report to the SAD for the very first time on Switzerland. So it is our people creating this data, giving this data. So now we give racial profiling workshops to the police in Switzerland. So if we build our own teams, collect our own data, we can provide that data.
No, the best part about the panel is you're listening to the cutting edge of what's happening. And so I'm super excited, getting goosebumps. You, sir, yes.
I want to go back to the issue of training, and specifically, if the panelists can recommend accessible, and I emphasize accessible training material in teachers literacy, targeting young people of African descent between the ages of 20 and 30. So materials where they can quick and dirty, learn the techniques where they can do some good, but at the same time, they're not going to do harm to the young ladies.
Okay.
That's the first part. Second part, based on that, what would be ballpark minimum number of hours or days that such a training would need to last? And that's about it.
Yes.
In interest of time, I'm happy to stay there.
The most difficult part is if you go through the established white institutions, the training is expensive. I mean, there's a University of Houston, there's the Rand Corporation, there's University of Arizona. I think UCSD has a training program. There aren't that many in the States that I can say at the moment. Of course, they're growing. But some places offer free seminars and workshops where you can at least get a taste for it. So believe it or not, the Dubai Museum of the Future is offering a free workshop. So if you go to that link, you'll find it. Now, of course, it makes me upset because we don't have a Black one that does it, right? And so that's why, and unfortunately, it's not institutionalized yet at one of our HBCUs to offer this training that I think many people would like to have. And that's what we hope will happen. Go ahead.
So I just want to add that the Black Speculative Arts Movement actually hosted some training that was offered to us for free last year, or early this year. Time is in my head. But there may be other opportunities that arise, and I would encourage you to connect with the Black Speculative Arts Movement, because when those opportunities do present themselves, the time, unfortunately, the window of time to gather people is not generally very wide. And so already being connected would make it much easier. Knowing that there's an interest and a demand would help actually to drive that creation. One of the things that, and I think Eula said it indirectly, is that we have to think more forward. It's great, I keep saying it's great that we're together, but if all we do is talk about what's wrong and we don't come up with strategies, techniques, methods for ways to make things better, and even a vision of what better looks like. Like I created a dream tank specifically to help people connect around looking for, imagining what's better, because quite often when we try to solve for X, we focus it on solving only the problem that exists without imagining what could be exponentially better or favorable. And that goes with data collection, data management, all the way to economics and how we move in society with each other, as well as how we deal with other people.
We got one more. Time for one more. And okay, two more. That's it.
I'll give a hint. I'll just give a quick hint.
Yes.
There's another friend of mine, I'll drop the link with you, who has an online program where he teaches coding.
Mm-hmm.
He teaches how you can make an app. He teaches how you can build all sorts of things. He was doing it online and you needed to have a computer, but his students in Africa didn't have access to a computer, but had a phone. So you can actually learn it on your phone. It costs $20. I will send the link.
The code in
Yes,
the link in
I will
Okay.
do exactly that. That is one of the ways you could do it.
Thank you
Perfect,
for that.
perfect. Okay, two more. One.
Mine's short.
Okay, go ahead.
To a degree, in all of your initiatives, particularly one and also people are engaging with engineers and engineering societies, such as, for example, the United States, the National Society of Engineers, and then those initiatives exist worldwide. So, just wondering, because we're talking about developing algorithms and specifically tech and VR initiatives, are you engaging those initiatives?
I am. In fact, quite often for most of my events, the volunteers that support me are members of NSBE. I am a process engineer. And so, yeah. So there's definitely the connection. And the other part of that, aside from engaging with engineers, I'm also hoping to create more engineers. I'm biased towards engineering. I believe that there will be a point when we realize that engineers are the ones that are going to solve all the problems of society, because that's what engineering is.
For me, I'm asked to speak at very large membership organizations like Blacks in Government or the National Association of Blacks, NFBPN, the National Black Forum of Black Elected Officials. So I do a lot of meetings and speaking and trainings with large membership organizations. And then under that umbrella, the U.S. Conference of Mayors is there, the Black Association members there, the National Association of Black Journalists is there. So I'm available. That's kind of how I get around and do what I do. Want to mention there's a couple of links in the chat. Zyka put the Harvard University Zoom link in there, and Apio also put, yes, please.
Those links into the WhatsApp chat group or the working group as well, just because a lot of Zoom.
Okay, I agree, and I'll definitely like to get your card later, right?
Thank you for asking.
But speaking of young people, like my son, since he was 11, was in Nesbitt Junior. And that is a great, if you have young people in your life, you should look for Nesbitt Junior chapter in your area. And I don't know if they're worldwide, but I know in the States, Nesbitt Junior is very active.
Okay, and Vicky.
It's better to carry on when you really is not there is the culture that the now and so thank you all for that. You know, it's like quick. The conversation that is just happening, on the floor back at the UN with regards to how to work through this declaration for people of African descent, which is going to be what everybody has stuck with. I didn't say it that way. Absolutely have to have this sort of vision, right? If you all are the main to, okay, yes, same focus here. We want to look back and make sure that we're correcting those things that went wrong, right? And speaking to them, that's part of the repair, honoring them, honoring the stories. However, what do we want to build and how to envision more broadly? You all are just, this is it. So the other thing is, I'm a dancer. I'm not a child that would have been in there or whatever. I mean, you know what I mean? We have so much that we give to our young children, and even if it's like 5, where we're getting kind of trapped into this. And so I can't even imagine how many of my high school students I have African arts connections helping me drumming and dance as a bridge for them to realize that they can survive, respecting their own culture, and diaspora, that the global people, and then also that person on that other block that primarily speaks Spanish, that they're not in, they gotta work where they are right now. They think that they gotta work together to lift the world. They would be so in love with this without even having been designated as an engineer, right? And possibly will be in a trade school, and this is not a bad thing, but and never be on a college campus, but it would be exposed to this. So, quick, my proposal for one way to reach them is that this working group already coming in that we wanted to, if we would, help a virtual tour after. The VP of the South Museum of African American in Chicago is already ready and waiting for you all to do it and let people in the other time zone that is sleeping still, I think, right now, as well as others around the world, see this as a virtual tour. And last thing is, whatever part of this we can share, your comment or whatever in the summary that goes.
Two.
Yeah.
I'm saying all of it.
Yes.
Just for our youth and adults and elders to see you is right, and it lets them see themselves.
So recently I heard a quote, and I'd have to say this because I feel like it's really appropriate, because we spend a lot of time looking back and wanting to make our ancestors proud. And it's really time for us to engage in actions, behaviors, and thoughts where we're making our descendants proud, where we are the ancestors that they look back to and say, I'm glad my ancestors did X, Y, and Z.
Again, I want to say thank you, guys. Thank you. I know we have more to the forums. Just thank you for your energy and your time today. Really appreciate it. And thank you to all our panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, y'all. And for those people that like are tuning in from the States, I really appreciate you interrupting your circadian rhythm to be with us. Ronaldo, it's always a pleasure to hear from you.